Okay, back to Mishlei. 1920, yeah, 1912. I got to tell you, by the way, it was, after doing Mishlei like every day for 5 months during my break, then like with the exception of like one chavrusa with Ken, I didn't learn Mishlei. It was so weird to just be out of Mishlei for a while. And it really is one of the, I was thinking about it. It was one of those things where, like, I said this at the beginning, but like, it's the particular ideas, but then it's also the being involved in Mishlei, thinking in a structured way every day, really like goes a long way. Yeah. Okay. 1912. Naham kakfir za'af melech uchatal al esev rutzono. Yeah, this is a tough one to weird words here. I guess the two words that we're not familiar with are in the ציון. Naham is Kain Nikra Sha'agas Ha'ari. That is what the roar of a lion is called. So we're just going to translate that as roar. Maybe there's like subtle roar terms that like lion experts know that that is different. But and kfir also is young lion typically, and then za'af is kas. Yeah. And when it says young lion, I don't know how davka that is, because like if you look at the Targum Ksuvim, he says Nahim Hech Arya Zafi Damaka, and I assume Arya is just the straight up Aramaic translation of Aryeh. So I don't, and since I don't really know the difference between young lions and adult lions, like whatever. All right, so how would we translate the pasuk? Kfir's a young lion. Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah. It's a heretic. Yeah. That's what Mishlei is about. Oh, I wonder if anyone takes it that way. That's funny. Yeah. That'd be a real stretch. Especially because I don't think kofir is a, I know kofir as heretic is not a biblical Hebrew term. I don't even know if it's, I'm just trying to think. I don't even know. I don't think that can be conjugated that way. No. Is it even a rabbinic Hebrew term? Apikorsim, yes. I don't even know, but anyway, yeah. Okay, so how would we translate it? Okay, like the roar of a young lion is the anger of the king. Okay, like the roar of a young lion is the anger of a king. And by the way, I like what you did, which was you did the natural thing, is you put the like onto the roar. And I also did that when I was translating it, and I was a little skeptical, but if you look at the Ibn Ezra Ksav Yad, that's the second Ibn Ezra on the right, he says, kaf kikfir mishamish la'ahor. So the kaf in kfir is used behind it. Okay, meaning that you apply it to the word behind it. Okay, so as opposed to, how would you translate it literally? Roar like a young lion. Yeah, I think it's just smoother in English. It's basically the same thing. What? Right. Yeah, that would make sense. Also. It would also make sense. Just, I don't know, like the roar of a young lion just flows smoother. Yeah. Is the anger of a king? Go ahead. And like dew on grass. Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna actually just type Ratzon because will is one translation, and then there's another translation for Ratzon. I think that is a candidate. Sorry, another one. Good one. Yeah, that's true. I think there's another one. Running. Like I'm trying to think of an example. Yeah, no, not running. That's actually a different shorish. Yeah. Favor. Oh. Yeah. I mean, which again, these are all related, obviously, but yeah. Okay. So let's just quickly take a look at so Sadigon. That's an important definition of something like. On the table. Yes, definitely. Yeah. It's worth saying, even if it ends up being the same. Sadigon says not much different. Timsa Zafa Melach Kinahamas Hakfir. You will find the wrath of a king to be like the roar of a young lion. The Timsa Ritzono Katal Al Ha'esev. And you will find his favor to be like the dew on the grass. Okay, I don't know what he's getting at with the Timsas, but yeah. Hey, Timsa. Like it should be. Oh yes, correct. That's what he's saying. That's what he's getting at. Yeah. Okay, good. Okay, and then just really quickly, I don't think there's gonna make a difference. Our scroll says, like the roar of a young lion, so is the wrath of a king. In fact, I'm actually gonna say wrath instead of anger because it is a different word than cost. And like dew upon grass is his favor. Living Mouth says the wrath of the king is like the roar of a lion, his favor like dew upon grass. And Alter says a roar like a lion's, the wrath of a king, but like dew on grass, his favor. They all go with favor. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so what are the questions here?
This is not the question, but I think there's another pasuk that talks about the roar of a young lion in comparison to a king.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, because I recall doing like half loading.
Was that a pun? Doing? Yeah. Do you know if it's before or after this? Because to my knowledge, the meforshim didn't quote any other one, so not that that proves anything. Yeah. Because if it was before, then I would want to look at that. But if it's after, then I'm not so keen on it.
Why is that?
But just because if it was before, even though there's no order in Mishlei, the meforshim might talk about it before. You know, so that's a good methodology policy is if there's a very similar phrase or the same phrase, it's worth looking earlier in the meforshim.
Yeah, it was 22.
22? Okay.
Yeah. It also says Nahum here.
Oh, okay.
So I guess my question, or like, what aspect of roaring?
Yeah. Okay, good. So what aspect, and that's a very precise way to ask the question, what aspect of roaring like a young lion is comparable to a king's wrath and how? I say that's precise because that's how all mishalim work, right? It's an aspect. And so it's a more precise way than to say like, what's the metaphor? Yeah.
What's the contrast in the first?
Repeat that again.
Like, what's the contrast between the first half and the
Yeah. What is I'm going to broaden the question. What is the relationship? I do agree. It seems like a contrast, but because it's not exactly opposites, right?
Yeah.
Like it's almost completely not opposite. It's like a mixed metaphor, right? Because
you can say anger, you can say wrath and favor.
Yeah, but the metaphors themselves don't seem like right. Young lion and like I would say like a lamb, you know, or like dew and torrential rain, you know. But you don't usually pair young lions and dew, and it's not even the same like you've got like flora and fauna. Like it's not even in the same species category. So where's the relation between the two halves? Are they opposites or something else?
One can also says which is
Yeah.
The monthly is the king's part zone comparable to grass.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah. What aspect of dew on grass is comparable to a king's favor? Yeah. Okay. Good. Yeah. It's actually, I guess there are not that many questions. I guess these are the basic questions. I mean, there are a couple more, but I think those are definitely the main questions.
Yeah. Okay, what is like? Is it like? Yeah. I guess. Yeah. What is the wrath?
Yeah. So let's say what wrath favor are we talking about here? So is this like in general, or is this referring to a specific type of circumstance? Like, for example, also, I mean, this is, I think, included in this is wrath and favor at whom? Meaning, like, let's say, for example, is this talking about a case where the king is just angry, or the king is angry at another person, or is it talking about where he gets angry at you, and this is telling you how to handle it, and also there's a question of degree, like you know, favor is very broad. Like, it doesn't mean like he really likes you in the same way that like you know, like Achashverosh really liked Haman or Mordecai. I mean, like, or is this like you do something that benefits him and he like gives you a thumbs up, you know?
Also, roar isn't necessarily bad. Like, I don't care about a roar.
Yeah, right. Being mauled by a lion? Yeah. So that fits under our question about what the comparison is, right?
Yeah. This question seems like it has a pretty obvious answer for me to ask it.
Yeah.
Which is, what is the practical?
Yeah, I was going to actually suggest that we explicitly state that for this one. Yeah.
Because it seems like this is trying to avoid the king's wrath and, you know, get a favor.
Yeah.
But But
Yeah, this is especially if you take Sadigon's thing, like you pointed out that he's just pointing out the phenomenon. I mean, if it's saying that you should, I mean, this pasuk is not clearly saying that any shoulds, and especially if you take Sadigon, so it's just saying, hey, you should know this is how the king's wrath and this is how his favor is. And I think you're right that the obvious answer would be don't make him angry and you should try to get his favor. But like, is that it, or is it a specific thing?
If he's talking like without sounding, is it possible to read it as talking to a king? Like saying,
Yeah, so let's ask that also. Who is the audience of this pasuk? And I think it's like, so one possibility is it a king? Another possibility is a subject.
the other possibility, I think, is like you said, it could be a third party.
Yeah,
different subject.
yeah, or a different subject. Yeah, yeah.
The person who's possibly making him angry.
A subject of his wrath, subject of his wrath and favor, or
Isn't doing anything.
yeah, a bystander. We'll say bystander. I think is just.
Who's the Melech Bisman Hazeh?
Yeah, that's another question. Also, is this the first pasuk we've done about kings?
No,
Yeah. Yeah. So, what is the
I
meaning?
think it's kind of that we ended up saying about that.
Yeah, I'm gonna give you the rule of thumb, but this is not answering the question. Oh, that many psukim about kings can be applied to any authority in any system, but sometimes king is specifically like someone with absolute power the way that it was back then. So we always should ask the question of like, what is a king in this context? Because sometimes it'll be broad and sometimes narrow.
I have more of an observation, but the roaring of a lion doesn't seem to have much put into action from it, but the placing of dew on grass does seem to be more of an action happening.
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, that's a good observation, right? Is that dew on grass is beneficial. Oh, just what's shot in dew on grass, by the way, just make sure we all know how this works. And, yeah.
Okay, so I mean, actually, is that in the morning there's like condensation on the grass.
Yeah.
Like from the change in temperature.
Right.
And so then water forms in the grass. That's called too.
Right. Good. And then why is that something that is nice?
Because it makes the grass grow.
Yeah. Yeah. It does have a irrigating effect. Is that what you call it? It waters the grass, right? And it not only that, but it presumably happens every morning. Right. I mean, obviously seasons can change and stuff like that. But in other words, it's not like some mornings you wake up and there's dew, and sometimes it's just not. Like, typically it's going to be a consistent thing, as opposed to say like rainfall, where like it's unpredictable. Yeah. So the reason why I asked the question what the shot is because when I was preparing this with someone, then they said, I was like, what's the what is the benefit of dew? And they're like, it feels nice when you walk on it. And I'm like, yeah, maybe, but I don't think that's like the framework they were in, Yeah. Okay, so let's try and answer them now. So these are starts of
I actually wasn't sure if that was like going to be like where the conversation went, but
yeah. Yeah, Ariel?
I have an approach, not a
Sure.
full-fledged answer,
That's fine.
but maybe you could say that there's like a quantitative difference between the like the wrath of a king and the dew on the grass. Meaning like this, like the king just naturally has a very big ego just because of his status.
Yeah.
Right. And this is the part where I'm guessing that if you really tick off a king, he'll be a lot more angry. He'll show a lot more anger than his kindness or his favor.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
that's probably true.
Yeah, like it's funny, like why say dew? Meaning like dew generally is comparable to rain, and like sustaining, grass or like different agricultural products. So maybe like dew in relationship to rain is not as abundant. So maybe it's a little bit more difficult for a king to show his favor as opposed to showing his wrath.
Okay, that's a good approach. So yeah, Isaac.
I had an observation
I'll address what you're saying in a second, Ariel. I just want to. Yeah. Yeah.
Just that I think like as a metaphor, it implies the fact that it's fleeting, because like dew is like present for like a short period in the morning and then it's gone.
Yeah.
And so
Okay. All right. Yeah. So just to put them together, then the hold on, I just forgot to close my WhatsApp. Close WhatsApp. Yeah, dew is minute in quantity and in temporality. And the roar of a lion is an extreme like act. And so what Ariel was suggesting is when you make a king angry, then either because of the degree of his anger or his ability to express it without consequence, or like without like there's no like social taboos that would hold him back because he's not beholden to anyone. So then he's just going to let out the roar, and that's like a forceful, like highly quantitative thing. I mean, in the sense of like there's an extreme amount of anger, whereas the favor of a king is not going to manifest itself in that extreme way. It's not like you make a king happy. If you make a king angry, he yells at you and says off with your head. But if you make him happy, it's not like he says, here's $1 million. Like it's not like rainfall. It's like dew, that the benefits of his favor are going to come to you in more subtle, minute ways and might not be long lasting. All right, so let's take that and translate it into a practical idea then. So what would be, yeah?
A roar also is not long lasting, really.
Right, that's true.
Like the roar
That's also true. Right, so maybe that counteracts what Isaac is saying, right? Meaning that maybe we're not talking about temporality, maybe we're just talking about degree. You know, like dew is very subtle and small, and like a roar is like a boom, like, you know, yeah. I do think we have to confront the question actually before we what did I miss it? Before we translate this into practical terms, I think we have to confront the question that like David was saying, that a roar doesn't actually have a tangible effect in the same way that dew does. Dew actually like makes the grass grow. A roar signals that the lion might eat you, but the roar is not equivalent to harm. In other words, dew is beneficial. A lion's roar threatens harm, but is not harmful. I think we have to confront that, yeah.
I don't understand the question.
The question is, dew is actually beneficial for the grass. A lion's roar is not actually harmful for anybody. It indicates that harm might come, but it's not actually harmful. And I think that's like an asymmetry in the muscle that we have to account for.
Oh, my approach isn't really, it really doesn't take into consideration of, you know, like whether or not it's beneficial or not.
Yeah, but the whole muscle is the roar of a lion. So like, why are we emphasizing the roar? Who cares about the lion's roar? I mean, let's just answer that question just to start off with. Like, forget Ariel's idea for 1 second. Why do we care? Like, what's the significance of a lion's roar? The significance of dew is that it waters the grass. What's the significance of a lion's roar?
So it indicates that there's going to be some danger.
Yeah, right. I think that yeah. So 2 things is the immediate effect is it's scary, and the reason why it's scary is because it indicates that there might be a follow-up attack. And this is where I'm kind of not sure about like I didn't see anything in the meforshim about this, but it would be nice to know if there is a difference between the roar of a young lion and the roar of an adult lion, because adult lion I would definitely feel more comfortable saying that it's going to attack you. I have no idea like why a young lion roars. You know, the only thing I know is like Simba saying "working on my roar," and I just can't wait to be king. But I don't think that has anything to do with anything. Yeah. Like in other words, like, are young lions more prone to attacking because they're like less experienced, or are they less prone to attacking? Like, I feel like if we say that fear is not a synonym for lion, then that might be significant in terms of the muscle. But yeah.
I wasn't thinking of that, but no.
Yeah.
I can't stop.
Yeah.
There does seem to be like, even in like facts, like there, like when you're talking about like the wrath of the king, like there is something to respond to. If you like see that he's getting angry, and like so you're gonna start like tiptoeing around and like being careful.
Uh-huh.
When it comes to so you're gonna like respond to that somehow or something.
Okay. So just tie that. Oh, are you answering a specific question, or you just just tie it into an answer? Yeah.
The asymmetry in the muscle.
Okay. Yeah.
The fact that the lion, it's the roar of the lion, which isn't itself harmful, but it's just like indicating it, and then the do, which is helpful in itself. So I don't know a full idea, but just like it does seem like when there's a bad thing that's happening, like or like an inkling of bad, so you're gonna respond to that, stop that. Like, so you need to know to look out for like the first inklings of it. Okay. But if it's a good thing, then you don't necessarily look for like warning signs of good.
Okay, I hear what you're saying. So practically speaking, so the mushel, so the mushel does that. The asymmetry in the mushel does point to the practicality of the pasuk, which is that that it's. I mean, we can. I think we're working on this assumption, or actually, Ariel's not working on this assumption. I think we're working on this assumption that it's a chiddush to say, like, in other words, you're not naturally inclined to look at the king's anger as the lion's roar, and this is telling you that you should. Does that follow from what you're saying, or is that a different move? Meaning because what Ariel was saying is that this is how kings express their anger, and it's stating a fact.
Can I modify my?
Yeah.
All right, because I didn't honestly I didn't notice the young lion in the pasuk. Maybe you could say that when a young lion roaring is sometimes it doesn't really mean anything.
That's okay. That's again. I'm not a lion expert, but that would be like a good type of distinction between a young lion and a mature lion.
I don't know. I'm just assumptions here, but
yeah.
Young lion roaring, maybe it could be a loud roar. I mean, maybe it could just be nothing, and maybe you want to attack. Maybe it's just venting.
Yeah.
Maybe
that's
straight up.
That's very appealing. That's a very appealing. Yeah, and and the reason why it's appealing is I think that's true of a king also, right? In other words, if you see an ordinary like colleague like expressing anger because of the social like boundaries, like you can assume for most people, I guess not short-tempered people, most people, like you don't just express your full anger whenever you're upset. A king, though, has the right to do that, or not the right, but he's in a position to do that because no one's holding him back. And like I say, he's not beholden to anyone. So the fact that like he gets angry at you doesn't necessarily mean that like something bad's going to happen. Like an example of this is just for example that comes to mind is like Steve Jobs apparently was a very unpleasant person to work with, and one of the reasons is because he always just like was very makpid and insistent on wanting things to be done in a certain way. Now, like his the people who were close to him knew that okay, like here's Steve Jobs' anger just because he wants it this way, and here's Steve Jobs' anger that we actually have to like care about. You know, like they can manage to the ordinary individual. Every time he yells at you, it's like something bad's going to happen, and then the discerning individual will be like, okay, well sometimes he's yelling like a young lion, sometimes he's not, you know. So I feel like with a king, it's a similar thing. Like someone whose ego is big and whose powers are unchecked, like you need to be able to know when their yell means something and when it doesn't. Is that like in line with what you're saying, Ariel?
Yeah, like absolutely. You know, like even in the work field, sometimes your boss could just be yelling because he's venting. I don't know.
Yeah. And I think this would be an example of how this can scale to different authority figures in different circumstances, all in accordance with like how much power and how socially acceptable is it for them to just like vent their feelings. Yeah.
The only problem.
Yeah. Sorry. Ariel, go ahead.
No, so I didn't want to interrupt. Isaac could go.
No, go ahead, Ariel.
No, I was just gonna say the only problem with this is I'm kind of, taking the practical cases and thinking that these are the facts for the cub.
Well, here's the thing, and this is a methodology point, is that like, obviously if you look at a pasuk and then you immediately associate to a real world scenario without analyzing the pasuk, and then you just project it into the pasuk, that's bad methodology, right? But there is a point at which you're developing an idea in the pasuk where real world examples start to come to mind, and then what you do is you play them off of each other of like, what light does this pasuk shed on the real world example? And then does that give us insight into the pasuk? And like you have to have a certain openness to seeing, is this a match? Like, is the pasuk talking about this real world phenomenon? And if so, you can think into the phenomenon to sharpen your analysis of the pasuk and vice versa. Or am I projecting and like just kind of like forcing the idea, you know? So I think we're at the point in our thinking about the pasuk where like letting real world scenarios come into mind and then like testing them through the lens of the pasuk is a valid move. Yeah, Isaac?
Yeah, so I looked it up and it said that land you should like indicate by that this is like their territory and their pride,
Okay.
which I think there's like interesting things to explore with that.
Yeah, territorial roaring is not one I would have thought of. Yeah. Yeah, okay, good to know.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess like maybe like a king. Also like sometimes when he's like being like very angry, it's actually very angry. And
Yeah.
He's expressing that this is not an okay thing to do, which will have different effects in terms of how it plays out. Like, if the king's actually angry at you, then you might suffer more like severe consequences.
Yeah.
Opposed to just like when he's marking his territory.
I see.
You know?
Right, and by territory you mean like his authority?
Yeah.
Yeah. So then does this shed any light on the second half of the pasuk of his favor?
Yeah, I mean, it does kind of go to Isaac's point of the dude being like leading to it, and like kind of like they're both of these things are sort of like red herrings. So I don't know if red herrings are ever, but like they're sort of like they seem like the roar seems like it's gonna be really bad.
Yeah.
The dude seems like it's gonna be really good.
Yeah.
But it's kind of good, kind of bad, but like not as like doesn't have as much effect as you would think.
See, I think that again, I'm not a line expert nor do expert, but I think that's wrong about the do. I think the do is beneficial, is extremely beneficial, and I think it's like always beneficial. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think.
I mean, it is fleeting, but I think the fleetingness is not indicative of lack of benefit.
Yeah, I mean, I think what Zeb said and modify it.
Yeah.
Because I think the do is always good, but it's fleeting. I think that the anger is always bad. It is something fleeting. And so like, there's a certain like type of trying to like assess signals about like to like project to the future, like, oh, like, you know, is it like, you know, I have a good relationship with the king, and so I'm going to be secure.
Okay.
Or have a bad relationship with the king, and so I'm in like I should like prepare to flee the country.
Okay, so you know
I will say I think I'm slipping into trying to explain the same way as the Mishnah post.
About the lions?
No, because I hear Baruchas.
Oh, okay, yeah, right. Some of the ideas we're saying, especially that last one, not the Avos one, are close enough to the Rabbeinu Yonah that I'd like to make an executive decision, and let's read the Rabbeinu Yonah, get one idea, and then see if that helps us to crystallize either like similarities in the approaches we've been taking, or see like that might sharpen the differences. And I think this Rabbeinu Yonah is pretty brilliant. Okay, I don't usually weigh in with a editorial opinion like that, but okay, Rabbeinu Yonah left column. Nam kafir zav melech ki gam yihye kamacharish v'lo yigar kasha. So because even when he will be as one who is silent, and he will not roar harshly, meaning this is talking about the king, right? Yidav ha'adam v'yira mizaf libo kamo minaham hakfir. So a person should have anxiety and should be afraid in his heart as if it were a lion roaring. Ki lo yitachin l'zaf hamelech mibli nezek. It is impossible to have kingly wrath without harm. Okay. Uva mikra hazel l'seis emas malchus al ha'adam. Rene here is doing something rare, which is stating the purpose of the pasuk. Miri does this a lot more than Rabbeinu Yonah. This pasuk is coming to instill fear of the monarchy upon a person. Kasher amruzal, like Chazal say, le'olam tehe emas malchus alecha. The fear of the monarchy should always be upon you. Ukatal al esav persona, and like dew on grass is his favor. Lo yitachin l'ratzon hamelech mibli to'elas. it is impossible to have kingly favor without benefit. V'gam im lo yiftach la'adam, even though he does not make a promise to a person. V'lo yodia, and he doesn't inform him, ki yesh es nafsho laheti bilav, that he has intention to benefit him. Kasher lo yitachin latal al esav mibli to'alos, just like it's impossible to have dew on grass without benefit. V'dima haraton ve'ein omer ve'ein devarim latal al esav, and he compares the silent dew, okay, the dew that it does not make any sounds, to the raton, Vidima haraton, he compares favor be'ein omer ve'ein devarim latal ha'esav, with the soundlessness of dew on grass. Okay, this struggling is weird too also, but I'll show you the movie's making. She'embo kol hamon kekol hamon hageshem, which doesn't have as much sound as the sound of a lot of rain. Okay, so what I find brilliant about this is we mentioned that there's a incongruity of the two halves of like, what does a lion roaring have to do with dew on grass? Like that one's intimidating and this one's like beneficial, and like that's animals and this is plants. So Rabbeinu Yonah is saying that the subject of the mashal is the relationship between like benefit harm and like noticeability or sound, like how loud it is. And he's saying the point of the pasuk is a king who is angry might be silent, but you have to regard it as though he's roaring at you and be on guard against the harm. And a king who has favor towards you, you might say, there's no sign that he's going to benefit me, but you should rest assured that he will benefit you.
There's still like an incongruity.
Yeah, but it's incongruity that he's congruifying because he's saying that it's stated in an incongruous way because of the chiddush, that don't be fooled by the silence of the king when he's angry. Treat it as though he's roaring at you loudly. You okay? Oh, I thought your chair like broke or something. Yeah. Don't treat it as though he's don't say, oh, he didn't say anything, so he must not be so upset. No. If he's a king, he will retaliate in some form and he will hold the grudge. And if you benefit him and he doesn't show any signs of like appreciation, don't say, oh, well, he didn't notice me. The same way that you would regard dew as beneficial, even though it doesn't make a big like ruckus, you know, that's how you should treat the favor of the king.
Oh, so I thought he was gonna say the opposite for the last one.
Yeah.
That even if the king makes a big deal about giving you favor, you shouldn't like let it get your head. Exactly.
So there are other psukim about that. I don't think that's what he or it is saying here.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought
You should like treat it like it's silent. Is what I
No. So he's saying that. Yeah. Right.
I don't think that he should be saying the opposite for the first half. Because that, if he's talking about the silence of dew, then it seems like if you're talking about like volume in terms of the pasuk, it seems like it's saying
Volume was what I was looking for.
Yeah.
By the way, not loudness. Yeah.
It seems like anger is loud, and then like the rotzon is silent.
Yeah.
So it's really finding out about silent anger, because it seems like anger is being expressed.
No, because maybe I'm clear about this, but he's saying that like obviously when the king yells at you, then you know he's angry, right? But you need to be told that when he's not yelling at you, he is equally angry, or he can be potentially equally angry, and there could be equal harm. So like he's telling you, beware the silent anger, and be aware of the hold on a second.
I don't see the silent anger.
He's saying because the pasuk is telling you a chiddush, not a fact. See, the question is saying that the king's anger is like a lion's roar. Is that stating a fact, and then we have to get an idea from it, or is that the chiddush, and we need to be told it? So he's learning that you would think that if the king is silent, then he's not angry at you. Kamash malan, or not kamash malan, but you should treat it as though his silence is like a roaring lion on which you should be on guard.
Can I bring a support for Rabbeinu Yonah for a second?
Just 1 second. Yes.
Well, why doesn't pasuk say like I guess maybe that's not a good question, but it seems like it would be a better parallel if the pasuk said and his ratzon is like, you know, a really loud thunderstorm or something.
Yeah, I think that was what was bothering me also, is that it's still not parallel, right? Because in other words, the pasuk is in the first half is refuting the Havamina. And I mean, the pasuk is doing both, but it's refuting the Havamina in the most appropriate terms. here in the second half, it's refuting the Havamina, but it is, I structurally, it's delivering the idea in a different way. That's what I'm trying to like wrap my mind around. Yeah, Ariel, what were you gonna say?
Yeah. So according to what's it called? This website, animalchannel.co.
Yeah.
He says that a lion's roar is one of the most powerful and frightening sounds in the world. However, lion cubs aren't
Ooh.
born with that ferocious roar. It takes
Okay.
lots of practice.
Uh-huh.
So
Oh,
meaning
working
like-
on my roar.
No,
Yeah.
so I think that Rabbeinu Yonah's first half of the pasuk makes sense because he's showing you the nature of a young lion's roar, which is really not that ferocious. It's not that loud. However, his anger can be just as equivalent as a male, as a big lion's roar. You know, it's
Okay. I mean, I like the distinction on its own. I don't see evidence of Rabbeinu Yonah caring about that distinction. Yeah.
I don't know, just showing his facts.
That, like how would he say it fits into the first half of the pasuk?
Yeah.
Yeah, because when a young lion is roaring, sometimes it'll be like ferocious sounding, and sometimes it won't.
Mhm.
But like, it's still trying to do the exact same thing.
Yeah, but the Rabbeinu Yonah document makes the opposite point. Kigam yeh kamacharish, velo yigar. I mean, he says lo yigar kasha, but he says when he's kamacharish, when he's silent. And the fact that he says when the king is silent and then the dew being silent, like he's really, I think he's focusing on those.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
sometimes the lion, the young lion is loud, and sometimes it's silent. But like that's not an indicator about what it's
Mhm.
trying to.
Meaning the anger could still be strong under the surface.
Yeah.
Okay, I hear that. And maybe that is what he means. Maybe to incorporate what Ariel's saying, lo yigar kasha. Maybe that is meaning like you just said. There's two options. Is that like in other words, don't make the mistake of thinking that the king is only really angry when he expresses his anger fully. Really, he could express his anger in a lesser way. That's yigar kasha, or he could even be silent. But you should know that there's anger there, and that it will come forward. And I just to elaborate on this fact, I think this connects to what Ariel, or one of the things Ariel said before, like why is this true of a king? So I think like in general, every person has a certain like retaliatory or reciprocative, whatever the word is, like way of interacting with people. It's just that most people don't have the capacity to actually act on it. You know, like if you might be really, really mad at your boss, but what are you going to do? Like fire him? No, you can't do that. He's your boss, you know? Or like if you did this in your normal social interactions, it would just destroy all your relationships. But a king is not bound by those. Also, a king has a big ego, typically. So the small slights are going to be taken as much more of an affront. And third is that the king practically needs to play the power game in terms of like maintaining his power. I mean, I know things might have been slightly different in the ancient world where kings were, you know, absolute for their entire life, but like the king still needs to play politics. Four is a king is going to be concerned, even if it's not for personal reasons, about the kavod hamalchus and like asserting his authority. And that's why he punishes and rewards as well. Like Achashverosh with Mordecai, like when he's like looking through the Divrei Hayamim, like looking for people who did him favors who he didn't reward. And like when he found that he didn't reward Mordecai, that was a problem because this people need to have this like view of the king that if they benefit him, then he's going to benefit them, you know. And so that's just like that's the premise of the pasuk that Rabbeinu Yonah is not going into so much. But yeah. So we're almost done for today. Let's do this. Let's let this roll around a little bit more. And I'd like to come back to it tomorrow, not to spend the whole day on it tomorrow, but just to restate Rabbeinu Yonah's idea and see if we can get it clear. And then the approaches that were tried out before this, I want to have a clear idea of which of those are viable and if there's any different ideas. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Yep. Nice to be back. Yeah. See ya.